cats now, so if you can hear them, this is Sedona. Bronx is somewhere. But if you hear them, it's because, you know, cats are loud and all over the place. Hey guys, welcome back to my channel, and if you're new here, hi, my name is Zhariya Smith, and I typically make commentary videos just like this one. So if you guys like that, you just happen to also love my gorgeous face, make sure to subscribe down below and hit the notification bell to get notified every single time I post, which happens to be on Mondays and on Fridays. Isn't that so crazy? Anyways, let's get on with this video.
Oh me, oh my, I'm so sad that I could cry.
So, as you know, I'm a I'm not TikToker, but I'm a TikTok connoisseur. I frequent the platform, and recently I've been seeing Shirley Temple's song Animal Crackers trending on at least my side of TikTok, and it got me thinking about how Shirley Temple was honestly kind of like the first like mainstream child to be like exploited and like sexualized by like the media. So we're gonna talk about it. Maybe you weren't, you know, in the 2000s watching the Shirley Temple's CD set commercial.
America's favorite little darling, Shirley Temple, has been entertaining us for generations.
But if you don't know who she is an American actress, singer, and dancer, also businesswoman, and she also was a diplomat, but I'll get into that later. She was Hollywood's #1 box office draw as a child, and this was between 1935 to 1938. And if you didn't know, she was born in 1928. So imagine how young this girl was. She's a toddler, essentially. And she died February 10th in 2014. She was 86. As an adult, she then became the United States ambassador for Ghana and Czechoslovakia before they split. That sounds like they were like in a relationship. They weren't. And also she served as the first female chief of protocol in the United States. And the beginning of her career, and this is just a history lesson before we start, the beginning of her career was before the Hays Code, which is basically an established set of censorship guidelines that was used to protect, you know, children, and it had a deeply conservative temperament to it. Hollywood writers and producers would often, you know, have the freedom to film literally whatever they wanted. And anything went in Hollywood. Now also, because anything went in Hollywood during this time, films starring hypersexualized toddlers pretending to be prostitutes, drunks, veterans, etc. were very popular, and the premise of this was, it was funny to see children acting like adults. I don't find it particularly funny, but that was the thing that the girlies were doing then. In her early career, she started her film career in 1931. Again, she was born in 1928. 2 years later, she achieved international fame for her film Bright Eyes, which I will get into later. That film is disgusting. Also, if you guys didn't know, she capitalized on her wholesome image. Despite her being sexualized as a kid, she had a very like wholesome, like cutesy image. She had dolls, dishes, clothing, her DVD sets, etc. She was, you know, she was pulling in the dough. She appeared in 29 films from the ages of 3 to 10. However, between the ages of 14 to 21, she was in 14 films. She retired from film in 1950, and she was 22. Her first movie that she was in was called The Baby Burlesks. And her first role, her debut into the world, was her being a prostitute. She now, well not now because she's dead, but in later interviews, she said that she would then describe it as a cynical exploitation of childish innocence. And in 1932, at the age of 3, she signed a contract with Educational Pictures. But let's get into that, the Baby Burlesque film that she was in. It was not good. So basically, when people ask, what is Baby Burlesque? It's described as a series of comedic shorts that featured toddlers performing satires of major Hollywood films and current events. That sounds pretty, you can get behind it. Sounds pretty normal. Well, in these 8 short films, it showed toddler stars being hypersexualized in adult clothing. They often would wear oversized diapers clasped with a safety pin underneath those hypersexualized clothing. In the short named Politics in Washington, Shirley Temple was 4, and she was playing a prostitute sent to entertain the senator, played by a fellow child actor. That was the thing. In these films before the Hays Code was made, it was children being with children. So I guess in a way it's not like so bad, but it's still gross and horrible and I hate it. Like Shirley Temple in this little segment, this is like it was 8 comedic shorts. This is one of the shorts. And in this one, she was wearing a small bra while filing her nails in a manner meant to mimic the actions of prostitutes during this time. And she was lounging in her boudoir. Yeah. So I'm gonna include some clips of this. She enters an office of the senator and she has pearls on, sashaying into the room, and she's kind of mocking how adult sexuality in a way. She kisses the senator on the lips, which was her first kiss, by the way, and she was 4. That's so sad. But I guess in a way it's like the children are just doing what they're told. It's not that they wouldn't even understand what they were doing anyways, I guess. But it's still weird to see, this happen. But the film director actually discovered Shirley Temple, which is how she was cast in this. Which I don't know how I feel about a grown man casting a 4-year-old daughter to play a prostitute. But, his name was Charles Lamont, by the way. If y'all want to drag him on Twitter, he's probably dead. Editing me will tell you if he's dead or not. So another short in the Baby Burlesque was War Babies. And she also was a prostitute in this. And she was, acting sexual towards toddlers who were 3 to 5-year-old boys who were supposed to be like army men, essentially. In this short, they put her in a purposely loose-fitting top that slips and falls down like her shoulders, and then she performs a seductive dance. And in this, they have more like put forth the idea that Miss Gurley is a prostitute because they later make her trade kisses for lollipops. She's repeatedly called baby. And she also refers to herself as expensive. How prostitution works. Children were often subject to being abused and mistreated during filming on set. So, according to historian and author John Kassan, I'll figure it out, said the conditions on the set of Baby Burlesque were less glamorous and were honestly very disturbing, particularly because of the treatment of the film's young and vulnerable cast. I'm going to read this quote directly, so I'll be reading off of this. But he said, to threaten and punish uncooperative child actors, the director, Charles Lamont, kept a soundproof black box 6 feet on each side, containing a block of ice. An offending child was locked within this dark, cramped interior and either stood uncomfortably in the cold, humid air or had to sit on the ice. Those who told their parents about torture were threatened even further with punishment. Shirley Temple actually told her mother about this and they did not believe her. So, This is basically her formative childish years that she's being portrayed as being very sexual. But after, the Hays Code situation and after children were no longer being forced to do that, they then decided to cast Shirley Temple in movies with older men. She was portrayed in many films, and they were kind of like weirdly romantic in a way. I don't know how to describe it, But it's almost as if they were kind of like read into this, you know, fantasy. But an example of the movie that honestly brought her a lot of fame was Bright Eyes. And in a number called, what is it? Good Ship Lollipop, she prances down the aisle of a bus, and adult men are looking at her lustfully, as described in this article that I read. This concept of Shirley Temple and older men were also very prevalent in her career, as I said earlier. In one of these films, she attempted to win a handsome man to be her father, and then she became adopted. This was in Poor Little Rich Girl. She was lovingly singing to this adult man and speaking about her desire to marry him while she caresses him. And she coos in the song, I'm going to read the quote, "I love to hug and kiss you. Marry me and let me be your wife. In every dream I caress you." Shirley Temple usually played orphans. So there was no like incesty stuff going on, but like incesty stuff going on. And so the audience was like, oh, she's just flirting because she's like young and, you know, they're not actually related. So you know how that goes. If someone has to like butt in and say, well, technically it's already not a good start. This obviously definitely exploited her as a really, really young toddler, pretty much. You would never see that happening now. She also was in a radio series. And it was called Bachelor's Children. It aired between 1936 to 1946, so this was for 10 years. The story is about the guy named Dr. Bob Graham, and he adopted twin girls who he promised to raise. He married one of the girls, and became the object of his desire. The union of the adoptive father marrying his adoptive child was accepted by audiences because, you know, they're not actually related. And the series actually won awards for realism. Realism. Okay. His sexual attraction to one of his adoptive daughters was not considered taboo, literally at all, which I think is disgusting. But again, you know how people say, like, oh, stuff for the times it was normal, but like, I don't know why it's just normal. But whatever. So let's wrap this up. Some final facts about Shirley Temple is that despite all of the childhood trauma that I've at least told you, it seemed to not bother her, or at least she doesn't portray as though it bothers her. She retired from acting at 22 because she said she kept on getting typecasted, and the fact that she's constantly in roles that sexualized her as a kid, and now she's older and they're still doing that, it's kind of gross. Also, I forgot to mention this before, but her father was a banker and she had a stay-at-home mother. So this is happening during the Great Depression. So clearly they were relying on their daughter for like most of the finances for the family. So I guess you can justify that how you will. She married a 24-year-old when she was 17. He proposed when she was 16. And they got divorced after 4 years after they had one daughter. 60 days later, she got married to a 30-year-old man. And she, you know, was with him for 55 years, which is cute, you know, but also when you see that she was being groomed at such a young age to, like, be affectionate towards older men, it puts kind of, like, a bad taste in my mouth. But also she ran for Congress. But, yeah, that's the story of Shirley Temple, of her childhood years and the darkness behind it. I am honestly so glad that, like, none of this stuff happens anymore that we know of. But that is the life of Shirley Temple. I hope you guys enjoyed this video, and if you did, make sure to give it a big thumbs up because it really helps all channels like mine. Make sure to also subscribe down below. I'm really, well, not close, but my goal for September is to get to 500 subscribers. Maybe it's 600. That's pushing it though. So yeah, and make sure to stay happy, stay healthy, and I will catch you guys in the next video. Bye guys.
And I think to myself, what a wonderful world.